The bestseller's burden, my tragic childhood memoir, was a lie to mask my sister's true killer. My name is Evelyn Evie Gray. 5 years ago, I became a literary sensation with my memoir, The Ash House. It chronicled my harrowing childhood in rural Virginia, culminating in the supposed suicide of my older sister Lila Gray when I was 16. The book pinned the blame for our fractured lives and Lila's death squarely on our emotionally abusive and alcoholic father, Robert Gray. The book was a lie. Lila didn't kill herself. She was murdered. And my father, for all his flaws, was not the killer. I fabricated the entire suicide narrative in the memoir to protect the one person who truly mattered to me and to conceal the truth from the police. My lie bought me fame, wealth, and safety. I now live in a beautiful anonymous high rise in New York City, far from the ash stained remnants of my past. The book tour. I am currently on a grueling national book tour to promote the 5 year anniversary edition of The Ash House. At every stop, I repeat the sanitized, tragic version of my past, the desperate girl, the silent suffering, the poetic tragedy of Lila's final act. During a signing event in Boston, a man approached the table. He was unremarkable, mid-40s, wearing a generic, ill-fitting suit, but his eyes held a chilling intensity. He didn't ask me to sign the book. He simply pushed a small yellowed photograph across the table. The photo was of Lila taken hours before her death. She was not alone. Standing beside her was me, Evelyn, and a third figure, a slightly older boy, his face scribbled out with thick black marker. On the back of the photo, scrawled in faint pencil, was a single cryptic phrase: the attic window was open. The threat. My blood ran cold. The attic window was a critical classified detail. In my book, I claimed Lila killed herself by hanging in the barn. But the police report, the real sealed one I saw years ago, noted a struggle, and the fact that the old, rarely used attic window in our childhood home was found inexplicably open. It was the only unexamined detail that suggested an intruder or a staged scene. I looked up, but the man was gone, disappearing into the crowd of adoring fans. Later that night, back in my hotel room, a flash drive arrived via courier. It contained one file, a short audio clip. It was my voice, age 16, shaky and panicked, talking to someone the night Lila died. He shouldn't have done that. We have to clean it up. We have to make it look like... The clip cut off abruptly. The message on the flash drive was simple. The bestseller's burden is due. Pay up, or he'll publish the real Chapter 16. Someone knew the lie. Someone knew that Chapter 16 of The Ash House, the emotional core of the book, detailing Lila's final note and the supposed suicide, was a complete fabrication. And they had evidence that connected me directly to the cover-up, the ex-detective. The blackmailer's move was aggressive, professional, and terrifyingly informed. They weren't just a fan. They were someone involved in the original investigation, or someone who knew the real killer. I knew who to call. Grant Thorne. Grant was the lead detective on Lila's case 5 years ago. He was a brilliant, relentless man who was certain Lila was murdered despite the ME's ruling of suicide. He was disgraced after relentlessly pursuing the murder theory and was eventually pushed off the force by his superiors, who wanted the case closed quietly. I had been forced to lie to Grant, manipulating him into believing the suicide narrative to protect the killer. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done. I found Grant working as a private investigator in a shabby office in New Jersey. He was weathered, cynical, and still haunted by Lila's case. "You called me Evie," Grant said, his eyes meeting mine. After 5 years of silence, "You finally ready to tell me the truth about that night?" I placed the yellowed photo and the decrypted audio transcript on his desk. "Someone is blackmailing me, Grant. They know the official story is a lie. They know about the attic window. They want money." Grant picked up the photo, focusing on the scribbled out face. "That was your childhood friend, Caleb Davis. He was there that night. You covered for him." I felt a fresh wave of panic. Caleb had nothing to do with this Grant. He was gone before... Before what, Evie? Grant pressed his voice, soft but insistent. Before the murder. The real killer. I realized Grant Thorne hadn't lost the scent. He just didn't know who the real killer was. "I didn't cover for Caleb," I confessed, my voice barely a whisper. "I covered for her." I pulled out a second photograph, a photo I had carried in my wallet for 5 years. It was a picture of a woman in a nursing uniform standing next to a young Lila. The woman had been our neighbor who often cared for us. The real killer wasn't my father. It wasn't Caleb, I admitted. It was Clara. Lila had discovered that Clara was involved in a massive identity theft ring using the personal data of patients at the county hospital. Lila threatened to expose her. "Clara," Grant repeated, his mind racing. "The woman who gave the first statement supporting your father's flimsy alibi." "She was terrified of going to prison," I said. "She killed Lila to silence her, and she staged the suicide to frame my father." I saw her. I saw Clara leave the barn that night. and I wrote the Ash House to pin everything on Dad to make the case airtight and to keep Clara from ever suspecting I knew the truth. The lie that saved me was now a beacon leading the blackmailer right to the truth. And the blackmailer by focusing on the attic window, and Caleb was trying to divert the heat away from the actual murderer, Clara. I had to find the blackmailer and determine their motive before Clara realized her secret was now on the open market. The confession hung heavy in Grant Thorne's cluttered New Jersey office. He didn't erupt in fury. He reacted with grim professional focus. Clara, Grant repeated, writing the name down. The neighbor. She gave a flawless statement. You protected a murderer, Evie. Why? She was desperate. I explained, the memory still chilling. Lilas' murder, it was brutal, but it was fast. Clara came to me right after, terrified, begging me to help stage the scene before the police arrived. She promised she would never hurt me. I was 16, scared, and obsessed with protecting Lilas' legacy from being ruined by a messy investigation. The book, The Ash House, was my ultimate cleanup, a controlled narrative that gave Lila a poetic if tragic end and blamed a convenient target, my father. Grant pointed to the scribbled out face in the photograph. The blackmailer is focusing on Caleb Davis, your childhood friend. Why mention him? He moved away the year before Lila died. He came back for one night a week before the murder, I admitted. Lila told me she suspected Caleb was involved in low-level drug running tied to the same hospital where Clara worked. The blackmailer is connecting dots, Grant. They think Caleb is the killer, or they are trying to frame Caleb to divert attention from Clara. The blackmailer's identity. Grant and I needed to understand the blackmailer's motive. It wasn't just about money. The targeted evidence, the attic window, the audio clip, Caleb suggested an intimate knowledge of the police file and my movements. We analyzed the courier receipt for the flash drive. It was sent from a specialized mail drop in Philadelphia, paid for with a highly specific cryptocurrency that Grant recognized. This crypto signature belongs to Derek Hayes, Grant revealed, pulling up a file on his laptop. He was a forensic accountant I worked with on the force. He was brilliant at tracing illicit money, but he was also deeply corrupt. He was fired for stealing evidence from a federal fraud case. He was stealing evidence. He didn't want money, Evie. He wanted the truth, Grant realized. Derek Hayes is tracing the illegal money trail from the identity theft ring Lila discovered. He doesn't care about your book. He cares about the corruption behind the murder. Derek Hayes believed Lila's murder was the key to unlocking a major financial conspiracy. He was using the evidence of the cover-up to force me to lead him to Clara and the money trail. The trap in Philadelphia. Hayes had given me 48 hours to secure the initial blackmail payment. We decided to use the drop to set a trap. I contacted Hayes via the encrypted email he provided, agreeing to meet in an abandoned warehouse complex in the historic Port District of Philadelphia. I'm going in alone, Evie, Grant insisted. You're too recognizable. I'll confront him about Clara, and we'll figure out his ultimate goal. I knew I couldn't trust Grant to protect me or Clara's secret, not after all the lies. I agreed to wait in the car, but I slipped a small, secured digital recorder into Grant's jacket pocket as he left. The confession and the betrayal. I watched from the shadows as Grant entered the desolate warehouse. Minutes later, the door creaked open and I crept inside. Grant Thorne stood face to face with Derek Hayes. Hayes held a large satchel, presumably filled with the documentation that would prove my memoir was a lie. Where is Clara Thorne? Hayes demanded, ignoring Grant's attempts to arrest him. Lila Gray's murder was the final link in a multi-million-dollar identity theft chain. Clara was the entry point. The murder was a cleanup operation. Clara's gone, Grant lied, but Evelyn provided me with the full story. I'm taking over the investigation. You want the glory, Grant? Hayes laughed. It's all here. Every piece of documentation proving the murder was staged, signed off by the highest members of the county office. The book was the cover, and Evie was the fool. Hayes reached into the bag. Before he could pull out the files, Grant moved with brutal efficiency. He slammed Hayes against a concrete pillar, the sound echoing through the cavernous room. Grant wasn't trying to arrest him. He was trying to neutralize him. I don't need your evidence, Derek. Grant hissed, his voice devoid of emotion. I need you silenced. Grant choked Hayes, his eyes fixed on the struggling man. I realized with shattering horror, Grant Thorne wasn't trying to solve the case. He was trying to protect the cover-up. The real lie. As Hayes slumped unconscious, I stepped out of the shadows. Grant, what did you just do? Grant didn't look surprised to see me. He calmly retrieved the satchel and the evidence. I had to Evie, Grant said, his face a mask of exhaustion and cynicism. Derek was going to expose the real story, and the real story doesn't end with Clara. He showed me a single faded photograph from the satchel. It was a picture of a younger Grant Thorne smiling broadly next to a man in a police uniform. The man was Clara's brother, a highly decorated officer in the county force. Clara didn't stage the suicide alone. Grant confessed, his voice heavy with 5 years of suppressed guilt. Her brother was the one who contaminated the crime scene, pressured the ME, and made the case airtight for suicide. He was covering for his sister, and I was covering for him. Grant, the lead detective, had protected the corruption within his own department to save his colleague. My memoir, The Ash House, had become the perfect best-selling narrative to close the case for good, absolving Grant of his professional guilt. The real lie wasn't just my fabricated memoir or Clara's murder. It was the complete professional corruption of the system which Grant Thorne helped orchestrate. The truth delivered by Grant Thorne amidst the concrete dust of the Philadelphia warehouse was almost unbearable. He wasn't the heroic, disgraced detective I had imagined. He was complicit in the cover-up, saving his partner, Clara's brother, at the expense of justice for Lila. Your book, Evie, was a godsend. Grant admitted, his face etched with regret. It gave us a narrative the press and the public wanted, the tragic, poetic suicide. It closed the case and protected the system. That's why I had to silence Derek Hayes. He was going to expose the departmental cover-up, not just Clara. Grant, having secured Hayes' evidence, loaded the unconscious former accountant into the back of his car. We need to disappear. The people Clara's brother works for, they are deep. If they think we have Hayes' files, we're targets. We drove south away from the city lights, heading toward the anonymity of rural Maryland. I had to maintain the pretense of cooperation, even as I realized Grant was a threat. The widow's location. My immediate priority was finding Clara. The blackmailer Derek Hayes had files that could implicate her, and Grant was trying to use those files to protect the institutional cover-up. If I could get to Clara first, I could leverage the evidence against the entire network. I accessed the master archive I had secretly copied from Derek Hayes' Seychella digitized ledger of the identity theft ring and the corporate shell companies it financed. The records showed regular, substantial deposits linked to a private nursing home outside Richmond, Virginia. Clara didn't run away, I realized, pointing to a payment log. She didn't disappear. She's living under a new identity, working and receiving payments from the identity theft ring. The new identity was Diane Hayes. A cold shock ran through me. Diane Hayes, Grant muttered, recognizing the last name. Derek Hayes' estranged wife. She went into witness protection 3 years ago, after Derek exposed her low-level involvement in the fraud case. The true killer Clara was hiding in plain sight, using the identity of her former conspirator's wife. The location, the Whispering Pines Assisted Living Facility. The confrontation at Whispering Pines. We arrived at the remote nursing home under the guise of visiting relatives. The facility was quiet, filled with the sterile smell of disinfectant and old age. We found Clara as Diane Hayes in the day room, assisting an elderly woman with a puzzle. She was unremarkable, gentle, and utterly unrecognizable as the panicked murderer from 5 years ago. I approached her alone. Clara, I said softly. She looked up, her face devoid of recognition. I'm sorry, dear. I think you have the wrong person. My name is Diane. I held up the yellowed photograph from the blackmailer, the one of Lila, and the scribbled-out face of Caleb. The attic window was open, Clara. Lila didn't kill herself, and the money you're getting comes from the same ID theft ring you silenced my sister over. The gentle mask shattered. Clara's eyes, the same eyes I saw that terrible night, filled with terror and cold malice. You should have kept that little mouth of yours shut, Evie, she hissed, her voice barely audible over the gentle sounds of the day room. The book was supposed to be the end of it. Clara's real motive. Clara confessed not with remorse, but with chilling calculation. Lila was a threat, Clara admitted. She wasn't just going to the police about the ID theft. She was going to expose the real target of the ID theft, a powerful state senator who was using the stolen patient data for political leverage and blackmail. Clara had killed Lila to protect the senator, not just her own identity theft operation. The corruption went straight to the state government. And Caleb Davis, I pressed. Why was he in the blackmailer's photo? Clara looked surprised. Caleb, he was nothing. He was just a boy. Lila used to buy her prescription anti-anxiety pills. He wasn't involved in the fraud. Clara denied any knowledge of the blackmailer Derek Hayes or the attic window detail. Her focus was only on the senator. The senator, Clara warned, he's the only one who cares about the truth. He's the one who controls the investigation. He's the one who gave my brother the authority to seal the case. Just as Clara was about to reveal the senator's name, the door to the day room burst open. The senator's bodyguard. It wasn't the police. It was a massive, clean-cut man in a suite, professional operative. He didn't speak. He moved with lethal efficiency, pinning Clara against the wall. You talk too much, Clara, the operative said, his voice flat. Grant, who had been guarding the perimeter, sprinted in, drawing his weapon. The operative easily disarmed him, smashing Grant's hand against a table. You're Thorne, the disgraced detective. The operative recognized him instantly. The senator wants the girl's book data and the files from Hayes. He wants the cover up maintained. The operative's goal wasn't just to silence Clara, it was to retrieve the master archive, the data I copied from Derek Hayes. I realized I was the only one left standing. The senator, the true puppet master, had sent his cleaner to eliminate all loose ends, Clara, the witness, and us, the possessors of the truth. I had to use the one weapon the senator didn't know I possessed, the complete fabricated narrative of the Ash House. The senator's operative, a man built like a wall, had Grant Thorne disarmed and injured, and Clara, the true killer, pinned down. I was the last target holding the crucial data on my encrypted phone, the master archive I copied from Derek Hayes. The senator wants the full data, the operative repeated, advancing toward me. It details every transaction, every name, every lie you covered up. Give it to me. I held up my phone, my hand trembling but my voice steady. You don't understand the power of the lie or the book. The master archive is a spreadsheet. My memoir, The Ash House, is a cultural phenomenon. If you kill me here, the media storm will expose the corruption, not the evidence. I needed a distraction. I had to use the one thing the powerful, calculating senator hadn't anticipated: the overwhelming noise of celebrity. You're a bestseller, Ms. Gray, the operative sneered. Fame won't stop a bullet. The viral confession. I'm not relying on fame. I'm relying on digital footprint, I countered. I quickly activated an app I had developed with my publisher for promotional emergencies. It was a pre-recorded video ready to upload to all my social media platforms and my publisher's official channels simultaneously, a message meant to go live if I ever disappeared. I modified the script quickly, speaking directly into the phone's camera, my voice echoing in the day room. My name is Evelyn Gray. I wrote The Ash House, and every word of Chapter 16, detailing my sister Lila's suicide, was a lie. Lila was murdered. The police covered it up, and I was forced to protect the true killer, Clara, to save myself and my father. I kept talking, giving just enough raw, shocking details: the hidden identity theft, the corruption, the names of the county officials Grant had confessed to protecting, to make the story credible. If this video cuts off, I finished, staring intensely at the lens. It means the man standing right here, acting on orders from a powerful state senator, has successfully silenced me. Before the operative could react, I hit send. The video was now uploaded to over 4 million followers and syndicated instantly across my publisher's network. You have 5 minutes before the most powerful memoirist in the country goes viral with a murder confession, I told the operative. You can kill me and prove my accusation, or you can run. The interrogation. The operative, calculating the PR disaster and the inevitable investigation, hesitated. He slammed his fist on the table instead of firing. We need the master archive, he repeated. The senator knows the book is a lie, but he doesn't know the financial details. That's the real threat. I realized the senator was terrified of the money trail, not the narrative. I pointed to Clara, who was still trapped and terrified. She has the senator's identity. He paid her directly. Grant, seizing the distraction, used the last of his strength to lunge at the operative, creating a window for me to escape with the phone. I dragged Grant with me, leaving Clara and the operative locked in the day room. We drove to a secure location I used for writing, a rental cabin deep in the Shenandoah Mountains, far from any cell signal. The senator's identity. Grant's hand was broken, but his mind was clear. The viral confession was reckless, Evie. You just painted a target on your back. The senator will be scrambling to control the narrative. I had to use the data before the FBI or the senator's people found us. I decrypted the master archive I copied from Derek Hayes. The financial records were heavily layered, but a pattern emerged: large, consistent payments flowing from a single shell company to Clara and several county officials, including Clara's brother, the corrupt officer. The shell company's director was an attorney named Elias Vancia, name that triggered a faint memory from my research on Lila's computer. I cross-referenced the shell company with campaign finance records. The company was the primary donor to the re-election campaign of State Senator Samuel Sam Hayes. The senator's name is Hayes, I whispered, the irony chilling. He's not just the puppet master, he's the client. And he's related to the blackmailer. The blackmailer, Derek Hayes, was likely the senator's estranged brother or cousin, using the murder cover-up to expose the family corruption. The publishing coup. The viral video was causing chaos. My publisher, sensing a media frenzy that could triple the sales of The Ash House, was fully backing the murder confession narrative. They were organizing a massive press conference in Richmond, Virginia, the heart of the senator's district, in 48 hours. The Senator Sam Hayes was now under immense pressure to respond to the accusations of a best-selling author. I had to use the public narrative I created to force the senator into a mistake. We need to lure him out, Grant, I planned. We need to make him think I'm going to leak the data at the press conference. He controls the police. He controls the county office. but he can't control the biggest story of the year. He'll never come near you, Grant countered. He'll send his cleaner or the FBI. He has to, I insisted. The master archive is financial proof. But I know a way to hurt him even more. I know the identity of the person Lila told everything to. The one person who was her confidant, and the person who holds the one piece of evidence the senator's cleanup crew missed. I looked at the original photograph again, the one the blackmailer sent, the picture of Lila Caleb and the scribbled out face. I need to find Caleb Davis. He's the only one who can prove the murder wasn't suicide. Our cabin in the Shenandoah Mountains provided a temporary shield from the chaos. The viral video had exploded, forcing Senator Sam Hayes to issue a generic, indignant denial, calling my claims the desperate fabrications of a troubled public figure. The FBI was officially investigating the allegations of fraud and murder linked to the senator's campaign. Grant Thorne, his injured hand splinted, worked to decrypt the final layers of the master archive. The financial trail is undeniable, Evie. Sam Hayes used the ID theft ring, the one Clara Ranto, funnel millions in dark money and create blackmail files on political rivals. But we still don't have the definitive physical proof that proves the suicide was staged. I knew the answer lay with Caleb Davis, my childhood friend, whose face was scribbled out in the blackmailer's photograph. Lila had trusted him. I used the limited data in the archive to cross-reference addresses connected to Derek Hayes, the blackmailer. I found a recent property deed registered in Caleb's name in coastal North Carolina, a small secluded cottage near the Outer Banks. Derek Hayes hadn't been trying to frame Caleb, he had been tracking him. The North Carolina coast. We drove through the night, abandoning our cell phones to avoid being tracked. The cottage was small, weathered, and hidden behind dunes near a quiet, forgotten stretch of beach. We found Caleb Davis inside. He was no longer the nervous teenager I remembered, but a lean, wary man working as a freelance marine biologist. He was living off the grid, clearly terrified. Caleb recognized me instantly, his eyes widening with fear and resentment. "Evie, you should have stayed away," he whispered. "Your book ruined everything. It made the lie real." I held out the yellowed photograph. "Lila was murdered, Caleb, and the blackmailer Derek Hayes knew you were the key. What did Lila tell you that night?" Caleb's confession. Caleb finally broke the 5 years of isolation and guilt spilling out. He confirmed he was involved in low-level prescription drug diversion through the county hospital connected to Clara's identity theft ring. "Lila confronted me the week before she died," Caleb confessed. "She didn't care about the drugs. She cared about the journal." Caleb explained that Lila kept a meticulous private journal where she documented everything she discovered about Clara's operation and the senator's involvement. "Lila knew Clara was covering for Senator Hayes," Caleb explained. "She was going to take the journal to the FBI. The night she died, she came to my old cottage near the barn. She told me she was terrified, but she made me promise to keep the journal safe if anything happened to her. She told me where she hid it." "Where, Caleb?" I urged, leaning closer. "The attic window was open." "Why?" "Lila told me that if she was ever cornered, she would use the attic window as a diversion," Caleb revealed. "It looked like an escape route, but it was just a red herring. The real hiding spot was the clock." The final evidence. The missing piece clicked into place, the antique grandfather clock in the old Gray family living room. The clock had been a focal point of my memoir symbol of the slow, suffocating time in the ash house. It was the only object the police hadn't thoroughly examined, convinced the crime took place in the barn. Lila had used the symbol of our oppressive childhood to hide the truth. Caleb produced the key to the Gray family home, a key he had kept for 5 years. "The journal is still there, Evie." She hid it behind the weights of the clock. "It contains every detail, the dates, the names, and the unredacted original suicide note Lila prepared as a decoy." Lila hadn't written a suicide note to frame my father. She wrote a decoy note to provide a plausible narrative for the police, giving her confidant Caleb time to secure the real evidence. The ambush. Just as I took the key from Caleb, a familiar metallic voice cut through the air. "Thank you for leading me right to the final piece of the puzzle, Ms. Gray." Senator Sam Hayes' operative, the man from the nursing home, stepped out of the shadows, flanked by 2 more men. They had tracked Grant's damaged car and anticipated our move. "The senator doesn't need your viral confession, Ms. Gray," the operative said, leveling his weapon. "He needs the journal and the master archive. He's sending his own team to your childhood home right now to clean out the clock. We need to secure the key and the archive from you first." I realized the senator hadn't just relied on his operative. He had used the chaos of my viral video to distract the authorities while he organized his own final sweep of the original crime scene. "We have to get to the ash house before his men do," I yelled, pushing Grant and Caleb toward the back door. The final race was on a race against the senator's cleanup crew to reach the one physical piece of evidence that could expose the 5-year-old lie and implicate the most powerful man in the state. The fate of the ash house and Lila's legacy rested on whether we could unlock the secret hidden in the grandfather clock. The senator's operative had the advantage of surprise and superior numbers. As he closed in demanding the key to the ash house and the master archive data still on my phone, Grant Thorne, despite his broken hand, executed a desperate maneuver. He tackled the nearest guard, sending both crashing into a heavy old filing cabinet. The distraction bought me precious seconds. I grabbed Caleb and sprinted out the back door and into the coastal darkness. They have to know we're heading to the ash house, I yelled over the sound of the ocean wind. Then we need to get there first or find a way to stop the senator's team. Caleb shouted back, sprinting toward a dilapidated pickup truck hidden in the dunes. We left Grant to fight a desperate holding action against the operative, a necessary sacrifice to secure the evidence. The cleanup crew. We drove inland, immediately using back roads to avoid detection. I contacted Derek Hayes, the blackmailer via the encrypted channel I still had. I knew he was the only one who hated Senator Sam Hayes enough to risk everything. Derek, your brother knows we have the data. I messaged, skipping formalities. He sent a cleanup crew to the old gray house to retrieve Lila's journal, which is the physical proof of his corruption. We need to stop them. Derek's reply was instantaneous and chilling. The team is led by Clara's brother, the corrupt officer. He's been protecting Sam Hayes for 5 years. He's not going for the journal. He's going for the original murder weapon, which he hid at the house as leverage against Clara. The original lie was even deeper. Clara's brother hadn't just staged the suicide. He had planted the weapon in the house, knowing that if Clara ever turned, he could frame her instantly. The Ash House. We reached the Ash House, the infamous centerpiece of my memoir, just before dawn. It stood exactly as I left it, desolate, shadowed, and radiating a sense of crushing silence. 2 unmarked SUVs were already parked near the barn. Clara's brother, a heavy-set man named Officer Ben Carter, stood on the porch with 2 private security guards forcing open the front door. I looked at the house, the site of my deepest trauma and the stage for my greatest lie. Caleb, you go for the clock, I commanded, handing him the key. The journal is the priority. I need to draw Carter's attention. I did the one thing the corrupt officer wouldn't expect. I leveraged my fame. The Bestseller stunt. I pulled out a small flare I kept in my emergency kit and ignited it, sending a bright red plume into the misty morning sky. I then walked directly toward the house, holding the master archive data, my phone above my head. Officer Carter, I know you're here to clean up your sister's murder. I yelled, my voice ringing across the yard. I have the full evidence, the financial ledger, and the confession. The Bestseller is live. Carter and his team instantly turned toward me. They didn't see me as a victim. They saw me as a celebrity demanding attention and holding the digital evidence they feared. Evie Gray, you've become a nuisance. Carter sneered, leaving his men to search the house while he approached me. Your book was good, though. It made my job easy. The clock and the trap. While Carter advanced, I saw Caleb slip around the side of the house toward the living room window. Carter cornered me near the dilapidated porch. The senator wants the data, Evie. We close this now. The book ends here. The book ends when the truth is exposed, I replied, buying time. Lila's journal is inside. It names your sister and the senator. Carter laughed. The journal is nothing. The evidence is what matters. He pointed to a loose, discolored floorboard beneath the porch. Lila's murder weapon, a rusty length of chainies buried right there. My sister used it to silence her, and I planted it here as a permanent, untraceable piece of blackmail against Clara. Once I retrieve the chain and frame Clara Sam Hayes is safe. Your book, your confession, all of it means nothing. The journal and the double cross. Just as Carter lunged for me, a loud, heavy thud came from inside the house. Caleb had successfully opened the grandfather clock. Carter ignored me and rushed inside, desperate to stop Caleb from retrieving the journal. I followed, grabbing a heavy loose brick from the porch foundation. I found Carter in the living room, wrestling with Caleb near the clock. Caleb had successfully retrieved a small, leather-bound journal. The journal is mine. Carter roared his desperation, overcoming his composure. Before Carter could grab the journal, a sharp, cold voice cut through the room. Neither of you is getting the journal, Carter. Derek Hayes, the blackmailer, stepped out of the kitchen shadows. He wasn't unconscious in Grant's trunk. He had been working with Grant, knowing the detective would eventually seek redemption. Derek held a high-powered camera recording the entire confrontation. The master archive I gave Evie was only financial data, Derek revealed, focusing the camera on Carter. The journal is the missing piece of physical evidence, and the world needs to see the corrupt officer covering for his sister and his boss, the senator. Derek Hayes wasn't a blackmailer. He was a truth broker willing to risk his life to expose his criminal family. The living room of the Ash House was a scene of escalating chaos. Officer Ben Carter, Clara's brother, was enraged, caught on camera by Derek Hayes, and facing the loss of his blackmail leverage, the murder weapon hidden beneath the porch, and the physical evidence of his corruption, Lila's journal. Carter ignored the master archive data I held and lunged for the journal in Derek's hands. That journal dies with me, Carter screamed, attacking Derek. I realized Carter's desperation was tied to the journal, not the weapon. The journal contained the unredacted decoy note and the senator's direct communication details. The weapon was merely leverage against his sister Clara. I used the heavy loose brick I had grabbed earlier and slammed it into the side of Carter's knee. He roared in pain and collapsed, momentarily stunned. "Grab the journal, Evie," Derek shouted, struggling to keep the camera recording. "We need to secure the evidence." I snatched the small, leather-bound journal from the floor and opened it to the last entry. My eyes immediately fell on two critical pieces of evidence. 1. Lila's real note. A detailed final entry confirming that the suicide note in my memoir was a decoy she wrote to Clara. "Tell them the father did it, Clara. It buys Caleb time." 2. The senator's code. A series of encrypted phone numbers and a recurring code word, Summit. The escape and Grant's loyalty. The two security guards outside, alerted by Carter's shouts, stormed the house. Derek and I grabbed the injured Carter's wallet and keys, securing his police ID, and Karen fled out the back door where Caleb was waiting. As we sprinted across the yard, we encountered Grant Thorne. He was battered and bruised, but conscious, having escaped the senator's operative back at the North Carolina cottage. "The operative is coming, Evie. He's tracking the data signal," Grant warned, his voice tight with pain. "Did you get the evidence?" I showed him the journal. Grant's eyes, still clouded by his earlier betrayal, softened. He knew this was the one thing that could redeem him. "You need to get this to the FBI's Organized Crime Division in Richmond," Grant insisted, handing me a slip of paper with a contact name. "Don't trust local law enforcement. I'll take the liability." Grant, realizing he could never truly clear his own name of the cover-up, made the ultimate sacrifice. He took the master archive, my phone, and the unconscious Carter's wallet. "I'll draw them away. The data is too hot. You go." He sent us off in Carter's unmarked police vehicle, the perfect disguise, while he stayed behind, preparing to stage a confrontation with the arriving operative, taking the risk of being caught with the incriminating evidence. The Summit Code. We drove fast, heading toward Richmond, the state capital, and the center of Senator Sam Hayes' power. Derek Hayes, having risked everything to expose his relative, helped me analyze the final pages of Lila's journal. "The code Summit," Derek stated, his face pale with adrenaline. "It's the senator's code word for his private, highly illegal political strategy meetings. They happen quarterly, always at the same time and location. The next one is tonight." Lila had not only identified the senator, but had figured out how he executed his most dangerous schemes in person, outside of traceable digital communication. The location was a massive historic estate known for hosting high-profile political fundraisers, the Ashland Manor. "The senator will be there tonight, believing he's safe surrounded by his collaborators," Derek said. "We can expose him to his own network, Evie." The decoy and the setup. We realized the master archive data Grant took was not enough. The senator's collaborators, the high-powered attorneys and political donors, would only believe the evidence if it came from the source, me, the best-selling author who was now a viral sensation. We needed a plan to get inside Ashland Manor and confront the senator in front of his inner circle. "I have to use the book one last time," I decided. "I need to turn the Ash House narrative into a weapon." I contacted my publisher, who was already orchestrating the massive press conference in Richmond. I canceled the public event and gave them a new exclusive story, the final chapter of the Ash House. "Tell them I will be delivering the final unedited true chapter of my memoir to a select group of the senator's closest allies tonight." I instructed my publisher. "The location, the Ashland Manor. Tell them the full truth about Lila's murder will be revealed there." My publisher, seeing the chance for an unprecedented literary event, leaked the information immediately. The media frenzy was redirected from a public square to the senator's private summit. The senator would have to make a choice: attend the summit and control the damage, or avoid the summit and look guilty. Knowing his arrogance, he would choose the former. My memoir, The Ash House, was no longer a lie. It was a Trojan horse, the bestseller's burden. My tragic childhood memoir was a lie to mask my sister's true killer. Episode 8, The Summit Infiltrating Ashland Manor. Ashland Manor was a sprawling, opulent estate, now hosting the exclusive Summit, a closed-door meeting of Senator Sam Hayes' most powerful financial and political collaborators. The media frenzy I ignited meant that although the event was private, the external security was intense, designed to keep the press out, while the senator controlled the narrative inside. Derek Hayes and I posed as catering staff, using Derek's knowledge of the senator's security protocols to gain entry. I carried Lila's journal hidden inside a custom-bound copy of the Ash House, the ultimate prop. "The senator will be expecting the police or the FBI," Derek whispered, leading me through the busy kitchens. He won't be expecting his disgraced niece, the author, and his estranged brother, the blackmailer, serving canapes. We confirmed that Senator Sam Hayes was present holding court in the main ballroom. He was outwardly calm, exuding the smooth confidence of a politician accustomed to crisis management. The senator's countermove. We accessed the main ballroom balcony, overlooking the powerful group of lawyers, lobbyists, and donors. I noticed a woman, an elegantly dressed campaign manager, hurriedly conferring with the senator. She handed him a piece of paper. His face immediately tightened with cold fury. He just received news, Evie, Derek analyzed. News about Grant. My fears were confirmed. I discreetly checked the national news feed on Derek's secured tablet. A breaking report flashed across the screen. Disgraced Detective Grant Thorne arrested with stolen evidence. Former NYPD Detective Thorne was apprehended in Virginia, caught attempting to destroy proprietary financial data stolen from the offices of Senator Sam Hayes. Authorities confirmed the evidence was planted by rogue operative Derek Hayes. The senator had moved quickly. He used the chaos created by my viral video to frame Grant Thorne turning the master archive data into stolen goods, and further cementing the narrative that I was an unstable author manipulated by criminals. Grant's sacrifice had been utilized to reinforce the lie. The pressure to expose the truth now rested entirely on the fragile journal in my hand. The confrontation. I didn't wait. I slipped through the service door and walked straight onto the main floor towards the senator. The room fell silent as the literary sensation whose viral confession had rocked the state stood before them. Senator Hayes, I announced, my voice clear and amplified by the hush of the room. I'm here to deliver the final chapter of the Ash House, the one the public never read. Senator Hayes met my gaze, his professional charm dissolving into icy contempt. Ms. Gray, the senator said, taking the offensive, your dramatic narratives belong on bookshelves, not here. We all know your viral outburst was a desperate attempt to defend your accomplice, the criminal detective Grant Thorne. I'm not here to talk about Grant Thorne, I countered, holding up the journal. I'm here to talk about Lila Gray's murder. I opened the journal to the last entry, reading Lila's clear, desperate handwriting. The senator is using the stolen patient files for blackmail. I have proof. If anything happens, tell Caleb to use the decoy and read this note. Lila wrote this entry hours before you had your sister-in-law, Clara, murder her, I revealed, pointing directly at the senator. And she wrote the fake suicide note to buy us time. Your entire political career is built on a teenage girl's blood. The master stroke. The room buzzed with shock. The senator, however, remained calm. A forged journal written by a disillusioned author. Senator Hayes scoffed, gesturing to the assembled lawyers. My team can discredit this in court in hours, Ms. Gray. You have no direct link between me and the crime. Your book is still a lie. He was right. I had the motive and the decoy, but not the order. Then I remembered the one small, crucial piece of information Derek Hayes shared: the senator's fear of the financial evidence. I looked at the senator's campaign manager, the woman who had just delivered the bad news about Grant. You're right, Senator, I conceded. The journal is just the prologue. The real story is the summit code. I read the final entry of Lila's journal. The senator's meeting is tonight. The code is summit. Lila knew you gathered your co-conspirators in this room, Senator. I continued, scanning the faces of the terrified donors. Every person here has their identity theft payments listed in the master archive. Every lawyer here drafted the shell companies. And I know you only finalize the most dangerous deals in person. I pointed to the senator's campaign manager, the woman who just handed you the paper. She just confirmed you received the data about the master archive being secured by Grant Thorne. I am merely informing the senator of a security breach, the manager snapped. No, I countered. You are running the senator's final defense, and you know where the only piece of physical evidence that links the senator to the murder is buried. I looked directly at the campaign manager, using the one detail only the senator's most trusted accomplice would know. The murder weapon is buried under the porch of the Ash House, isn't it? The rusty chain Officer Carter was supposed to retrieve. The campaign manager's face went white. I hadn't used the master archives data. I had used the senator's own cover-up attempt, witnessed by me, as leverage. The senator knew I knew the full story. He had lost control. The arrest Senator Sam Hayes, realizing the campaign manager was about to crack and the entire room was panicking, chose one final desperate move. He grabbed a glass of water and threw it at me, shouting, "Security, get this lunatic out of here!" But before the security team could reach me, Derek Hayes, who had been lurking at the service entrance, emerged. He wasn't just holding a camera anymore. He was holding a small, secured badge. FBI Organized Crime Division, Derek announced, his voice carrying the authority of the federal government. Senator Sam Hayes, you are under arrest for conspiracy, murder for hire, and systemic corporate fraud. The evidence provided by Grant Thorne is now fully secured. Derek Hayes hadn't been an informant. He had been working undercover with the FBI to expose his corrupt family. He had used me, the best-selling author, as the ultimate viral distraction to force the senator into the open. The room erupted as federal agents disguised as catering staff and donors moved in to secure the senator and his collaborators. The lie of the Ash House was replaced by the crushing truth of the Master Archive. The arrests at Ashland Manor were instantaneous and total. Senator Sam Hayes and dozens of his collaborators were taken into custody by the FBI's Organized Crime Division. The summit was the official end of the political conspiracy that had cost Lila her life. I was immediately taken to a secured federal building in Richmond by Derek Hayes, who quickly shed his undercover persona. He wasn't just an agent, he was the primary investigator on the Hayes family corruption case. Your viral video was a calculated risk, Evie, Derek explained, sitting across from me in a debriefing room. We needed to force the senator to compromise himself publicly. Your fame gave us the perfect cover. And Grant Thorne, I asked, my voice tight. He sacrificed himself to give you the Master Archive. He's in custody. Derek confirmed, his expression grim. But the charges against him for destruction of evidence will be dropped. His actions, while technically illegal, were essential to the federal investigation. He'll face disciplinary review, not prison. Clara's confession. The next day, the FBI brought Clara, the actual killer, from the nursing home. She was presented with the unredacted evidence, Lila's journal, the Master Archive transactions, proving the political blackmail, and the video testimony of her brother Ben Carter, who had been apprehended at the Ash House. Carter, facing charges of obstruction and evidence tampering, had cracked and confirmed that he staged the suicide at his sister's request, fearing exposure of the senator's operation. Clara's veneer of innocence finally collapsed. She confessed everything. Lila confronted her with the journal, demanding she stop feeding patient data to the senator. Clara, fearing the loss of her financial lifeline and prison, murdered Lila with a rusty chain during the confrontation in the barn. She then leveraged her brother, Officer Carter, to contaminate the scene and stage the suicide, using the decoy note Lila had left. The official record of Lila's death was finally rectified. Suicide was changed to first-degree murder. The father's vindication. The collapse of the suicide narrative meant the vindication of my father, Robert Gray. The police had never charged him, but the stigma and public judgment heavily fueled by the Ash House had destroyed his life. I drove out to the dilapidated cabin where he now lived, having lost his job and his reputation. They arrested the senator, Dad, I said, handing him a sealed letter from the U.S. Attorney's Office. And they proved Lila was murdered. The book, it was all a lie. I wrote it to protect myself and to protect the truth from a corrupt investigation. My father read the official letter. He looked at me not with anger, but with profound sadness. I knew she didn't kill herself, Evie, he said quietly, his eyes focused on the distance. A father knows. But you painted me as the villain of your bestseller, and the world believed you. You let me carry that burden for 5 years. The true burden wasn't the memoir itself, but the relationship I had destroyed to write it. The lie had saved my life, but ruined his. The road to reconciliation was long and uncertain. Grant Thorne's redemption. I met Grant Thorne outside the Police Disciplinary Review Board office in Richmond. He was officially suspended but facing reinstatement pending internal review. You saved the case, Grant, I told him, handing him a copy of Lila's journal. You gave me the ammunition, Grant corrected me. I was a corrupt cop who found a clean way out. You gave me that, and I secured your life. We are even. Grant looked at the journal. Lila was a hero, Evie. She died trying to expose them. We need to tell the real story. The final chapter. The public confession had created a global demand for the real story. My publisher, eager to capitalize on the unprecedented events, offered me a massive contract for a second memoir. I sat in my New York high-rise, no longer writing a lie for safety, but writing the truth for redemption. The new book wasn't about the tragedy of suicide. It was about the bravery of my sister, the systemic corruption of the political machine, and the painful choice a scared teenager made to protect a secret. The working title? The Master Archive. The true story behind the Ash House. The true final chapter was the story of how a lie was used to mask a murder, and how the truth hidden in a journal copied onto a stolen hard drive and delivered by an author, a disgraced cop, and an undercover agent finally brought down a corrupt senator. The burden of the bestseller was finally lifted. 1 year later, the legal storm has subsided, leaving a transformed landscape. Senator Sam Hayes was convicted on multiple counts of conspiracy, fraud, and murder for hire, primarily due to the damning evidence in the Master Archive secured by Grant Thorne. Clara received a life sentence for the murder of Lila Gray. My father, Robert Gray, has finally been cleared of public suspicion, though the relationship remains fragile. The lie of the Ash House caused a wound that won't fully heal, but the truth allows for a slow, painful path toward reconciliation. My life, Evelyn Gray's life, has been redefined by the truth. I finished my second memoir, The True Story of Lila's Murder, the Political Corruption, and the Fabrication of My Fame. The book? Launch. The new memoir, The Master Archive. The true story behind the Ash House is launching today in Richmond, Virginia, the same city where the senator once wielded his power. I chose the location deliberately, a simple public library, a symbol of transparent knowledge, instead of a grand corporate venue. The public reaction is complex. Some see me as a brilliant literary figure who risked everything for the truth. Others see me as a manipulative liar who profited from her own deception. The bestseller's burden has shifted from protecting a lie to defending the painful truth. At the launch, I look out at the crowd. They are here not for a tragic heroine, but for a witness. The confidant's choice. After the signing, a quiet figure approaches the table, Caleb Davis. He looks healthier, more settled, having finally shed the burden of his secret. The journal is safe, Evie, Caleb confirms, referring to Lila's journal, which is now secured in the FBI's archives as primary evidence. Thank you for getting it out. Caleb reveals his next step: he has chosen to cooperate with federal investigators on the drug diversion aspect of the case. He will accept liability for his past actions, choosing accountability over silence. He is choosing his own hard-won truth. Lila would be proud of you, Caleb, I tell him. Grant's farewell. Later that evening, I meet Grant Thorne at a quiet diner. Grant was reinstated, albeit in a non-field role, serving out the rest of his career on desk duty. His redemption is incomplete, a constant reminder of the lines he crossed. The system survived, Evie, Grant notes, stirring his coffee. The senator went down, but the political machine adapted. That's the real burden you carry now, knowing the extent of the corruption you exposed. He hands me a small, sealed envelope. Inside is the original unburned copy of the fabricated suicide note from my memoir. This is the last piece of the lie, Grant says. The final act of the cover-up. Keep it or burn it. It's your choice. It is a physical reminder of the cost of my ambition. The power of the lie was not in its content, but in my choice to write it. The final chapter is written. I return to my apartment. The new book is a success, less commercially explosive than The Ash House, but infinitely more valuable. It is the record of Lila's bravery and my own painful journey out of the darkness. I sit by the window holding the single piece of paper Grant gave me, the final physical remnant of the lie that launched my career. I don't burn it. Instead, I place it carefully into a steel lockbox. I will keep the lie not as a secret to conceal, but as a talisman of accountability. It is the burden I chose and the burden I must carry to ensure I never prioritize fame or safety over the truth again. My sister's true killer is gone. The corruption is exposed. And the best-selling memoirist is finally free, burdened only by the weight of a truth she fought fiercely to tell. The only way to truly honor Lila's memory is to keep writing the facts, no matter how hard they are to face.